Okay. We'll just carry on from where we had left off last class. We discussed customer relationship management, and is a concept which is based on the belief that customer is no more a transaction, that he comes, buys an item from you, and he goes, and my relationship is over on that day. So customer is no more a transaction. Today, customer is seen as having lifetime value for the company, and therefore we try to get a 360-degree view of the customer, and we create a customer profile as to when he visits us, what he purchases, what is the basket of items that he purchases, what is the kind of and what is the mode of payment that he makes, and so on and so forth. We create a customer profile in order to make better use of the customer. Now, basic business value from CRM is it helps us understand the customer better. It enables in better decision making in the product line. It enables in better marketing campaign. It helps us reduce customer churn rate, that is the rate at which they deflect or move to other competitor. Then it helps identify which customers are more profitable. We believe on the 20-80 principle. So we select those 20 customers who give us 80% of the turnover, and we concentrate on serving these customers better. So we identify which customers are more profitable, increase customer satisfaction, decrease the marketing cost, and enable a more effective marketing. So this was the business value of CRM. Now we move on to an extension of CRM, which is called CEM, Customer Experience, which is called CEM, Customer Experience Management. So CRM was customer relationship management, where we were concerned more with improving our relationship with our customers and making them more profitable customers, retaining that customer, because we believe that it is 6 times more costly to acquire a new customer than retain a customer. From here, we move on to CEM. CEM is Customer Experience Management. CRM is Customer Relationship Management. CEM is Customer Experience Management. Now, Customer Experience Management works through the customer's viewpoint. So herein we are concerned with what the customer feels. To assess the quality of their experience, he has interacted with us. What is his experience with us? We try to assess his experience with us. So a CRM platform is an important investment, as it keeps track of crucial data for your inbound marketing and sales effort, and also analyzing customer behavior. CRM has crucial elements of keeping your customer happy. They have technological solutions for gaining insight on your customers through the power of data. So we create customer profile. We mine this data to identify useful information of the customer to serve him better. So CRM pertains to managing your customer and the prospect base. So this is what CRM is concerned with. It is a methodology, or it's a holistic approach that monitors and attracts customer through a great experience. CRM, so CM, on the other hand, it attracts customer by giving him a good experience. So whenever customer visits your website or a customer visits your retail outlet, you give him a wonderful experience. And through that experience, you try to attract him. Through that experience, you try to retain that customer. So CEM is a methodology or holistic approach that monitors and attracts customer by giving him a great experience. CRM is generally more of a platform or software solution that allows customer to track customer and prospects interaction, to drive sales and insight, and to resolve issues. Right mix of both is important to keep the customer happy. So it is not only CRM but also CEM which becomes important. The goal of CRM is to retain existing customer by maintaining and improving the relationship, say through loyalty programs. It is a technology, and of itself, it is a best practice and a strategy to build customer relationship. CRM platforms are Salesforce, Microsoft Dynamics, and NetSuite. They use power of data to analyze and track customer behavior. They use the power of data to track and analyze customer behavior. CRM, in brief or in simple words, they deal with how they became a customer, how he was a prospect, and how you could convert him into a customer, what they buy from you, how often they buy from you, how much do they spend, the way they interact with your website, and other parts of your online presence. So, this is what CRM is concerned with. It is concerned with what products, how he became a prospect, how he became a customer, then what they buy from you, how often they buy from you, how they make payment, how much do they spend, the way they interact with your website and other parts of your online presence. This, in simple words, is what CRM deals with. CEM focuses on gathering and utilizing experiential data. So if they have visited your website, if they have purchased something, then you take a feedback from him as to what was his experience. So this is generally done by using a questionnaire, using a Likert scale, and for each statement you assess his experience. So CEM focuses on gathering and utilizing experiential data, the practice of designing and reacting to customer interactions to meet or exceed customer expectations and thus increase customer satisfaction, loyalty, and advocacy. The objective of CEM is to gather, track, and organize all steps of a customer journey through customer perspective. CEM does so through reviews, surveys, and direct feedback. Like we said, we use a questionnaire. We interrogate, we take a feedback from the customer using the questionnaire, which has a list of statements to assess his experience, and that we try to assess on a Likert scale. So CM does so through reviews, surveys, direct feedback, and other ways of communicating directly with customer regarding their experience. This data is used to improve processes and customer experience, increase customer loyalty and efficiency of the organization. So CRM and CM both optimize customer relationship. CRM facilitate the relationship building for an organization, while CM focuses on monitoring and improving the experience. So one facilitates relationship building, the other believes in improving that relationship. So CRM is more transactional by tracking metrics, how customer spends on average per order, what categories of items they purchase. CM is more experiential, regardless of the amount spent by him, regardless of what he purchases, regardless of how often he spends. We try to assess, did he have a good experience? Did he have a good shopping experience? And therefore, we try to modulate our performance. We try to improve our relationship, our services to the customer. So CRM is more transaction by tracking metrics, how much customer spends on an average, what categories of goods does he purchase, while CM is more experiential, regardless of the amount spent, regardless of when he purchases, what he purchases. We try to assess, did he have a good experience? And in future, we try to better our services and thereby our relationship with the customer. So we are over with CRM. We had done in the last class cross-functional information systems, and these are necessary to remove the information islands which might come to exist in an organization. In the first that we took up in this relationship was CRM and extension of CRM, which is a customer experience management, CEM. Now we move on to the next topic, which is supply chain management. Now, how do we define supply chain management? What basically is a supply chain? Supply chain is a chain which brings within purview suppliers upstream and retailers downstream and all the business functions into one system. So when we talk of an organization, within an organization, say an organization is undertaking the manufacturing process, it would purchase components, it would produce those components, assemble those components into finished product. Then it would package these finished products, send it to the retailers or the dealers for sale. So in an organization, there are a set of activities which are performed, which could be purchasing of the components, which could be manufacturing those raw material and components into your finished products, and then finally packaging those finished products to be sent to the retailers or the dealers for sale. So in a supply chain, what it does is it brings into one system. So this was your organizational system: the purchase, the production, conversion of raw materials into finished product, and the finished product being packaged to be sold to be sent to the retailer. This is all what we call the organizational system. Within this organizational system, we extend it upwards to bring within the system the suppliers who are giving you the components or the raw material, and the dealers or the retailers downstream who are enabling you to, who is acting as an intermediary to sell your products. So a supply chain extends upward to bring the suppliers, extend downwards to bring the retailers in one purview, into one single system. So a supply chain extends upstream to bring within purview the suppliers, downstream to bring within purview the retailers, along with internal functions that of purchase, production, packaging, all in a single chain in a single system. Therefore, we can say it consists of three subcomponents or three entities: upstream suppliers and all his suppliers, downstream retailers and distributors, and the internal organization. They are seen as a single system. So there are three entities. One is the suppliers, and which we call Tier 1 suppliers, and its further small suppliers. Downstream, the retailers, and the third is the internal organization. We put them into one single system. So it consists of these three entities: the suppliers, the organization system, and the retailer system. All make together a chain. They work hand in hand as one single system. So when we talk of this, it becomes a web or a network of relationship that exists. We move upwards. One supplier has three other component suppliers. Those suppliers have another 3-4 suppliers. So it's a web of relationship. When you talk of retailers, the organization is not selling to one retailer. It is selling to maybe 4 retailers or 10 retailers, or it is selling to 10 distributors. Each distributor is selling to 20 retailers. So it is a web or a network of relationship. And information is the glue that holds the system together. How is it that all these small components are tied together? It is through information. It is through the passing of information or the sharing of information. So we say information is the glue that holds the system together, and lack of information or wrong information can disrupt the working of every member in the system. So supply chain, we say, consists of three entities: the supplier, the organization, and the retailer. Or it is a web of relationship which exists because there are so many retailers, there are so many suppliers. So it is a web or it's a network, and it is information which acts as a glue that holds the system together. And any lack of information, any wrong sharing of information, or any wrong information is going to disrupt the working of the entire of every member. So now, how do you relate to this? Is this wrong information flow can disrupt the working of a system, of the supply chain system, has been depicted very well by J. Forrester. In his book Industrial Dynamics in 1961. J. Forrester, in his book Industrial Dynamics in 1961, he defined this kink in the supply chain, or a wrong information flow and disruption of the entire supply chain. He called this as a bullwhip effect. So when you whip a bull, the harsher you, when you whip a bull, the bull will jump and he'll run away from you. So the jumps that he takes are small steps initially, and he'll jump higher on later on, so further from you. So if you see a bull being whipped, it will take small jumps and then it will take bigger jumps, higher jumps. So this is what he talks about. The bullwhip effect is like that. It is the variability which takes place in a supply chain is like that. So the variability is small initially, but they become bigger as we move upward in the supply chain. So as we move from the organization, from the retailer to the distributor, from the distributor to the factory, from the factory to the suppliers, the spillover or the small jumps, and then it will make higher jumps when it moves away from you. Similarly, the variability or the discrepancy that exists initially are small, but they become bigger when you move upward in the supply chain. He called this concept bullwhip effect, and in his book Industrial Dynamics, in short, we call it a BWE. So, which is defined as the variability of upstream side is always greater than the variability of downstream side. So, if at the retailer end it is 5, at the distributor end or the wholesaler end it could be 15 or 20 or 25. So, this amplified order variability is because of behavioral causes or because of operational causes. So there could be operational cause because of the lead time. Say you order for goods, it takes 10 days for the goods to reach you. So that is what we call the lead time, the time between the placement of order and the receipt of goods. So the bigger the lead time, the bigger would be the variability, because you feel unsafe for 10 days. So if your product is to be delivered within 2 days, you feel unsure just for 2 days. So you try to keep stock for 2 days. But if your delivery or your lead time, that is placement of order and the delivery of goods, is 10 days, then the variability is going to be more. You're going to feel more unsure, and therefore you're going to keep stock much more. So this is what J. Forrester called it as he called it bullwhip effect, which is defined as the variability of upstream side is always greater than variability of downstream side. And this amplified order variability is because of two causes, which we call the behavioral cause or the operational cause. Operational cause, for instance, is the lead time, how much time it takes between placement of order and receipt of goods. If this lead time is small, say 2 days, the variability is going to be less. If the lead time is 7 days, the variability is going to be more, because you're going to be unsure for 7 days. If the lead time is 15 days, then your variability is going to be much higher. It is also a result of behavioral causes. What we mean by behavioral cause is a person might like to play safe. So if I have 10 units with me, I might believe that a customer can come and order for 12. So if I believe that, then I will try to stock more, because I would not like to say no to a customer. Similarly, there are some who like to take risk. So if he has only 10 units, he will not order for more. He'll say, okay, let customer come. I'm sure customer is not going to order for 10. He's going to order for less. But those who like to play safe, if they believe the customer will order 10, they will try to stock more. So this is the behavior of an individual can bring about variability in the number of quantity that you order for. So these are behavioral causes and operational cause. There are n number of causes listed by him. The major 4 causes are demand forecast updating, order batching, price fluctuation, gaming, and rationing. So there are n number of causes. The 4 major causes are demand forecast updating, order batching, price fluctuation, rationing, and gaming. Now let's focus on the first one, demand forecast updating, which means how you make your forecasts. Say a customer comes to me, I'm a retailer, a customer comes to me and orders for 10 units. If he orders for 10 units, the retailer believes that I should stock more than 10. So when I place an order to my upward channel, who is the wholesaler, retailer is receiving goods from the wholesaler. So when he places order to the wholesaler, he orders for 15. So he orders for 5 more. So he received an order for 10, but he orders for 15. He orders for 5 more. So when the wholesaler receives an order, he receives an order of 15. But then he also plays safe. He says, what if customer asks for 20? What if customer asks for 22? So when he places an order, wholesaler places an order to the factory, he places an order for 25 units. He places an order for 25 units. So you see how we started with. Customer places an order only for 10. This is what the retailer sees. Retailer sees an order of 10. But when retailer is placing an order, he places an order for 15. So the wholesaler receives an order for 15. But when he receives an order for 15, he believes that maybe Next customer can come for 22. He can come for 20 units. So he wants to play safe and he places an order for 25 units. So the factory gets an order for 25 units. When the factory produces or he places order to his component supplier, he also believes that maybe the wholesaler might come and order for 30 or 32. So factory produces 35 units. So the actual order was 10. It got incremented to 15. Then it increased to 25. And then it increased to 25. And that 25 increased to 35. You see how the amplification increases. So the 10 became 15, the 15 became 25, the 25 became maybe 35 or much more. So this is what we mean by demand forecast updating. So when everybody is making a forecast, it is forecasting based on what has been his order. So retailer is making a forecast on 10. Wholesaler is making a forecast because based on his order of 15. Factory is making a forecast based on his order of 25. So what has been his immediate order? So nobody knows actually. The factory does not know the actual order was 10. If they knew the actual order was 10, the factory maybe would have produced not 35, but maybe just 15 or maybe 12 or 16, 12. That 10 could have been converted maybe to 12 or 15 or 18, but not 35. So this is what happens. Now, how do we control this? If we have a EDI network or the retailer is networked with the wholesaler is networked with the factory, each will understand, each will be able to view what has been the actual order. So the customer will be able to view that 10 units. The factory will be able to view so if we have EPOS, electronic point of sale, across the network, across with the distributor, the wholesaler, the factory, and so on, each know the actual demand, and they will work accordingly. So this amplification of order will not take place. Else, if we had what we call a system which is called vendor managed inventory or VMI, wherein the upward channel manages the inventory of the downward channel. So the factory manages the inventory of the wholesaler manages the inventory of the retailer, and so on. So the factory knows how much inventory the wholesaler is keeping of every item, and he knows when the inventory reduces to a certain level, to which level it reduces, and when he would place an order. So it is not the wholesaler who would place an order, but automatically, because the data of inventory being maintained by the wholesaler is seen by the factory knows that A item 100 units is there, B item 400 units is there, C item 280 units is there, D item so many units are there, and how much is selling on a daily basis. So the moment it hits a low level, when he would have placed an order, wholesaler would have placed an order to the factory, because it is able to see the inventory maintained at the lower end, at the wholesaler end, automatically he initiates an order. There is no order initiated. Automatically, factory sends supply to the wholesaler. Similarly, if wholesaler manages in the inventory of the distributor or the retailer, wholesaler would know that how much of A item is there, B item, C item, D item is maintained by the retailer. And once it reaches that particular level, which is the order level, so the retailer will not place an order. The wholesaler automatically will send a supply of so many units to the retailer. So this is what we mean by vendor managed inventory. Then in a continuous replenishment program, when we don't stock for 7 days or for 10 days, we stock on a daily basis. This I think we have discussed earlier when we discussed the case of Walmart. In a continuous replenishment program, electronic point of sale capture the sales data on a daily basis, and at the end of the day, you know how much has to be replenished to which retailer. So it's a daily replenishment system, which we call a continuous replenishment system. In these problems of demand forecast updating and variability or a bullwhip effect is controlled. Next is what we call order batching. Now in order batching, what happens is that we place an order in a week. So one day, say Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, there is no order placed. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, there is no order placed. The order is placed on a Saturday. So for a retailer, I'll have to order for 7 days. Now, when I go to the wholesaler is actually supplying to 10 retailers. So if the order for a retailer is 10 units, and the wholesaler is supplying to 10 retailers, the order for the retailer the order for the wholesaler would be 100 units, 10 into 10. Now, if a distributor is supplying to 10 wholesalers, so for each wholesaler it is 100 units. So 100 into 10 becomes 1000 units. So you see, for some point of time, there is no order placed. Then there is an order placed for 10 units at the retailer end. Then there is an order placed. So if you move upwards, the peak is 10 units. Then when you go to the wholesaler end, it becomes 100 units. Then you move upward to the next end, which is the distributor end, it becomes 1000 units. So the factory is supplying to 10 distributors, it would become 10,000 units. So the small peak 10 becomes 100, which becomes upward becomes 1000, further upwards becomes 10,000. So you see, when we batch orders of a week or 10 days, again this variability, these peaks would, the spikes would increase as we move upward in the supply chain. If we break the bulk, why? Now, why we order batch? We batch orders because it is convenient for us and it is economical for us to transport. So if we are sending 1000 units in a truck and they charge me 1000 rupees, per unit cost of transportation is 1 rupee. 1000 units is the amount that I have to pay, and 1000 is the number of units being transported. Transportation cost is 1 rupee per unit. But if we send, say, 500 units or 200 units, the per unit cost would be 1000 divided by 200, which will be 5 rupee per unit, which is going to be high. So in order to make economy of scale in transportation, we try to batch orders, we try to procure in large numbers, we try to place order after a week or 10 days and procure items in large number. But these problems can be removed if we believe in a JIT system where daily replenishment takes place. If we use small wagons, we don't use large wagons, but we use small wagons. That is like the Tata Ace, which has small wagons, or we use what we call third-party logistic service providers. We take the benefit of what we call 3PL. Third-party logistic service providers. Now, third-party logistic service providers, they transport items not only for me. So the truck that I hire is not for use only for me. On a small part of the truck takes my goods. Another part, say 1/4 of the truck, takes my goods. The another 1/4 takes the goods of yet another second retailer, and the remaining half is taken by a, say, third retailer. So there are 3 retailers who's making use of this particular truckload. So third-party logistic service providers, they give the transportation facility not only to me, but to n number of retailers. So in this way, I don't have to book the entire truck or pay for the entire vehicle. I have to pay for the space that I utilize in the vehicle. So this is what we might mean by third-party logistic service provider. So order batching, when we batch orders at the retailer level, there would be no order placed for 7 days, and on the 7th day, there will be order placed for 100 units. For the wholesaler, there will be no order, so it will be a flat line shown for 7 days, and on the 7th day, the spike would be for 100 units. Then for the distributor, for 7 days, there will be no order placed, but on the 7th day, it would be a spike of 1000 units. For the factory, no order for the 7 days, and the 7th day, there would be a spike of 10,000 units. This can be done away with by making use of small wagons, by following a JIT system, or by making use of third-party logistic service providers. Now coming to price fluctuations. Now price fluctuations also take place in an organization. So when a retailer sells, in order to sell more, he will give certain kinds of discounts. There could be New Year discounts, there could be seasonal discounts, there could be puja discounts, festive discounts, there could be discounts or of every kind. So when these discounts are offered by the retailer to the customer purchases more. So they buy forward, they buy more than their actual requirement. So there could be n number of discounts which take place. So when discounts are operating, the actual figure of the sale figure would rise, and it will give a distorted picture of sales. So if we share this information with upward members in the channel, they will know that this is not a actual sale. The sale is taking place, or rush in sale, spurt in sale is not because of actual demand. It is because of the discounts which is being offered by the retailer. So there are discounts which operate in the supply chain, which is given by the consumer discounts, which is given by the retailer to the customer, which is in the form of New Year discounts, festive discount, puja discount, seasonal discount, and so on at the end of the season, or EDLP, everyday low pricing scheme. You give discounts or low prices on certain products on a daily basis, on different items on a daily basis. So so there will be a spurt of sales in this when such discounts are operating in the supply chain. There could be trade deals. Trade deals is between upward members in the supply chain. So it is not between the retailer and the customer, but between maybe the wholesaler and the retailer, or between the distributor and the wholesaler, or between the factory and the distributor. So when it is upward in the supply chain, then they are called trade deals. So these discounts occur. So if we let them know that this is not actual picture of the sale, this is because of trade deals or discounts which is operating in the supply chain, these discrepancy or distortion would not take place. And last is the rationing and gaming. When you expect a scarcity to come about for certain item, everybody knows that a scarcity is expected, so they will stock more than their actual requirement. And in order to stock more, they know that the manufacturer is going to curtail supply. He's not going to give me as much as I want because there's going to be a scarcity. Then what I do is I order for more. So if my requirement was 50 units, I order for 100 units, expecting the manufacturer to give me 50%. So if he gives me 50%, he will actually give me 50 units that I wanted. So I order for more. So each of the member of the supply chain, they try to game the rationing. So the manufacturer is going to ration supply. He's going to curtail supply. He's not going to give me as much as I want. So I try to ration the supply. I try to game the rationing. I order more, expecting him to give me less. So if I need 50 units, I order for 100 units, expecting him that he will only give me 50%. So if he give me 50% of the 100, I get my actual requirement of 50. So they try to game the rationing. So this is therefore, if the upward member in the supply chain, let him not be influenced by the actual order received. Let him place or fulfill orders based on past records. In the past, he never ordered for 100 units. He's always ordering for 50. So this is his actual requirement. The actual requirement was 50 units. In the past, he's always ordered for 50. Suddenly, he's ordering for 100. So this is not his actual requirement. So I should be assessed. I should be influenced not by actual order, but by what the past record has been. So there are n number of causes which leads to bullwhip effect. The four major causes are demand forecast updating. Second is order batching. Third is price fluctuation, and fourth is rationing and gaming. And we've discussed how do we mitigate these effects. How do we mitigate this? Now, SCM software allows a company to integrate data and information with the supplier and retailer with the purpose of decreasing cost. It creates a form of inter-organizational system, which we have discussed, that these three entities, the suppliers, the retailers, and organization, they become one system. It creates a form of inter-organizational system that creates a seamless system for buying raw material, producing goods, and packing to send to retailer shelf. Integrating the supplier and the manufacturer and the retailer. So it integrates supplier, the manufacturer in between, and the retailer downstream. SCM software is a planning system that can provide information up and down in the supply chain, enabling everyone to see the same piece of information. So everyone will engage in better forecasting. So whenever there's a customer order received, that we talked of 10, that 10 units is seen by the retailer, the 10 units received by the retailer, it is seen by the wholesaler, it is seen by the distributor, it is also viewable by the factory. So SCM software is a planning system that can provide information up and down the supply chain, enabling everyone to see the same piece of information, customer order of 10, so that everyone will engage in better forecasting. The 10 will not become 15, 15 and 25 and 25 and 35. So they will know it was 10. So if it increases, it might become 12. SCM planning system enable firms to generate demand forecast, develop better demand plan, develop sourcing and manufacturing plans also. They coordinate change information, coordinate activities with supply chain partners, and minimize costs all through the supply chain. The demand plan, therefore, the demand plan at the retailer level, how much is the demand? It was 10. That 10 gets converted into the sales plan. The sales plan gets converted into manufacturing plan. Manufacturing plan gets converted into sourcing plan and so on. So one plan operates all through the supply chain. So each of them see the 10. So that 10 would have been a retailer's demand. Okay, that much, how much you would have placed an order. It would have become the sales plan for the distributor. For manufacturer, how much to manufacture? 10 would be the item to manufacture. It would have become in the manufacturing plan. The manufacturer would have sourced components and raw material from the suppliers. So the manufacturer would have converted this into a sourcing plan. So the same 10, the demand plan gets converted into sales plan gets converted into manufacturing plan into sourcing plan. So one plan operates all through the supply chain. So different plan is not made by the retailer, by the distributor, or by the factory. It is one plan which operates all through the supply chain. So the islands of information that existed within an organization can also exist in the supply chain. But the internal collaboration that an organization can generate through intranets now can be extended to supply chain partners through extranets. So whatever the purchasing, the manufacturing was being done, the internal departments in an organization are viewable by the retailer and the supplier. Suppliers can log on to the company's extranet site and see next week's production schedule. So the production plan is seen by supplier also. So he can plan his supply schedule. So we move from a push system to a pull system, which we have discussed earlier. Business value of SCM is it helps match supply with demand. It helps reduce inventory. It helps improve delivery service. It helps speed time to market. Use assets more efficiently. Supply chain planning system enables firms to generate demand forecast, develop better demand plans, develop better sourcing plans, develop better manufacturing plans. And it also enables coordinate change information, coordinate activities with supply chain partners, sourcing, packaging, manufacturing, distribution all gets coordinated. And we try to minimize cost all through the supply chain. We try to minimize the sourcing cost, the packaging cost, manufacturing cost, distribution cost, and so on. It decreases one plan. So one plan, demand plan gets converted into sales plan. So this we have discussed. Now global supply chain and the internet. Islands of information that exist within an organization can also exist in the global supply chain. The internal collaboration that we had with the organization, now we are going to extend it through extranets to our supply chain partners, so they can log on and see what is happening. Business issues in global supply chains are going to be more. So the mismatch is going to be more. We try to match the demand with the supply, but this is going to be more because of greater geographical distance, because of time difference, because of additional cost of transportation, invention, taxes, fees, foreign government regulations. There are government regulations which are different. There is cultural difference. Communication is not direct. It is via email, fax, phone. They're prone to errors. The use of web-based supply chain management enable users to access information through browsers and portals. SCM software products have typically been developed to enable in a process for either supply chain planning or execution applications. We have vendors like i2 and Manguistic, which support a variety of applications for supply and demand forecasting. There are also big vendors like Oracle and SAP, which are offering web-enabled software suites of e-business applications that include SCM modules. Examples are Oracle's e-business suite and SAP's AG MySAP. So with that, we are over with CRM, CM, and also your supply chain system. Very briefly, your supply chain system consists of three entities: the suppliers, the manufacturer, and within the manufacturing setup, the purchase, the manufacturing of raw material into finished product, the packaging, and so on, with the retailer. So there are three entities: the suppliers, the manufacturer, and the retailer. They're all brought into one continuum, and whenever there is an order placed by the customer to the retailer, the same order is viewable by all. So all of them generate one plan which works across the supply chain. Now, any query students have? Students, if you have any query, you can please share with me. So today we took up just a review of CRM, which is no more a transaction, but it is assessing the lifetime value that we can get from a customer. We move from CRM to CM, customer experience management. We try to retain customer better by giving him better services by first assessing what has been his experience with me, with my organization. So both CRM and CM has equal importance. Then we moved on to supply chain management system, wherein if we do not have a coordinate system, each will work according to the demand which is fed to him, and there will be distorted data existing all through the supply chain, which is called the bullwhip effect, which was given by Jay Forrester, which is also called the Forrester effect. He talked about it in his book Industrial Dynamics in 1961, and he says there are n number of causes. The four major causes are demand forecast updating, order batching, price fluctuation, and gaming and rationing. And we have also seen how to mitigate this effect. So we can call it today